it's such a difficult choice. It's just such a difficult choice, you know? Some women feel like it's not the right decision for them. So just rip your baby limb for limb and crush its skull and suck it out with a vacuum because it just doesn't feel like the right time to have a baby right now. Do you see the problem? Do you see the problem? Did Candace Owens seriously just ask if women should be able to vote in 2023? I'ma hear her out. Let's unpack this. And stick around to the end because I will answer this question for myself. This is Bold Reflections.
Name one objective thing that has gotten better in American society since women were given the right to vote. I then wrote, please contain your emotions and answer the question. I'm working on an episode and want to read aloud some of the answers. Now, despite the fact that I said, please contain your emotions, I, of course, did not get that. Women spilled all over. I can't even believe you're asking the question. How could you even ask the question? I can't even objectively answer it because I'm so sad that you asked the question. And therein lies my point, right? My point is that when women are called upon to be objective, too many women struggle to be that. They struggle. They're so emotional and upset that their answers, they can't even fumble upon the right answer. People are, how dare you, Candace? How dare you ask this? I didn't even imply an answer in the question. Maybe you could have given me a list of 20 things that you think have gotten better. Maybe you could have given me a list of 20 things that you thought had gotten worse. I just wanted objective answers. And I'll tell you why I asked the question, because I've realized something and it's infuriating me. I've realized that right now, women in this society are allowing very bad things to take place because we're too nice. We're just too nice. We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. So we are willing to allow evil to take place over and over again. We're allowing evil to go as far as it possibly can simply because we don't want to upset anybody. We don't want to make people feel bad. Two things that took place that led me to this thought process. First and foremost, I had heard years ago, somebody said to me, have you ever read Ann Coulter's piece about why she believes that women shouldn't have the right to vote? And I went, no. That sounded ridiculous to me at the time. I thought it was crazy. I thought Ann Coulter must be insane. Why would she say that I shouldn't have the right to vote as a woman? And then it dawned upon me, and I still have not read her piece, but I'm pretty sure I know where she is going with that thought process. Because Budweiser and Bud Light and the entire controversy with Anheuser-Busch surrounding Dylan Mulvaney made me recognize that men are able to do certain things that women cannot. We have watched over the last year, more than a year, Dylan Mulvaney put on a little girl's outfit, claim to be a little girl, say that he's living his first year of girlhood. We watched him mock women. Right? He's literally playing dress up, and he was handed sponsorship after sponsorship, female sponsorships, Ulta Beauty. Here you go, Dylan Mulvaney, Nike, bras. How many women had to step aside because a man decided that he could be a little girl better than we could be women? Were women outraged by this? Some of us, too few of us. Didn't stop the sponsorships from coming in. In fact, some women felt the need to stick up for Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan Mulvaney is just being who he wants to be. It's not perverted at all that somebody who's closer to 30 wants to pretend that he's a little girl and wear little girl skirts and outfits. Nobody cared. He was allowed to essentially trash women to our faces, mock women for an entire nobody cared. And then what happened? Well, Dylan Mulvaney picked up a can of Bud Light, said, ha, 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 I don't know what March Madness is, but this is an ad, and swam in a pool. And men said, hell no. Okay. Kid Rock decided to use Bud Light as target practice, and he said, F Anheuser-Busch, millions and millions of views. Men were like, yes, absolutely, we will not accept this. We are no longer drinking Bud Light. Bud Light as a company, Anheuser-Busch, they suffered the consequences of having a perverted little man traverse into a male space.
And by the way, as of, I think yesterday, they lost $4 billion. How much has Nike lost? How much has Ulta lost? None. They're all good. They're all safe. It's insane. Literally insane. So much truth to what she's saying, but we're going to continue.
Matt Walsh, obviously a colleague and a friend here at the Daily Wire, tweeted this. He said, the Dylan Mulvaney endorsement cost Anheuser-Busch $4 billion so far. That's because we spoke out loudly and made them pay the price. Some conservatives say we should have ignored this issue. Would it have been better if Bud Light paid no price at all? Is that what they'd prefer? We have made Mulvaney toxic for brands like Bud Light. This is a good thing. It's what we need to be doing. I'm sorry if it bothers you, but these are the necessary steps for actually moving the ball forward. I guarantee other companies that cater to a similar customer base will think twice before endorsing trans ideology after this. This is a win. I'm not saying it's a total victory in the culture war, obviously, but it's a win, and we should take our wins rather than looking for reasons to whine about them. Now, let me be clear, Matt Walsh is correct here. It was, in fact, a win. Dylan Mulvaney is now toxic to other brands. But what's being missed here is, why did it take men standing up to this for this to end? Why did it take men saying something for people to go, wait a second, Dylan Mulvaney, what are we talking about? This is a complete pervert living out his sexual fantasies. This is a form of sexual deviancy. A grown man wanting to be a little girl is not normal. We should not accept this. Why did it take Kid Rock deciding to annihilate some Bud Light cans for people to say, this is really wrong? Why did it take that for Bud Light to lose all of this money? For any of the brands that have played with Dylan Mulvaney, how come they weren't similarly impacted by endorsing this sort of ideology?
I want to go ahead and pause here and answer that question from my perspective. The reason it took men standing up for the whole Bud Light controversy to actually make a dent in this conversation is because, to this point, because beer is sort of that like man frontier thing, but the rest of the brands were feminine, or at least gender ambiguous, where it didn't really matter. To me, it is a symptom. Like, the reason this got so far, the reason it can even exist in our society in the first place, is because of the feminization of men. Because we live in an unprecedented time where in America, we are like number one for fatherlessness in the home. So we have so many men who grew up with a single mom. And that's bad for women too, but it's really bad for men. So when you get a Dylan Mulvaney, he gets to stand unopposed because the beta male society do not want to stand up to women. Why? Because they were either raised by a woman and do not know their father at all, or have a toxic relationship with their father because of their mother, or they have some woman that they're trying to simp for, some feminist that they're trying to simp for, or the politicians in power are simping for women as well. And she's,
oh, I know why. Just kidding. It's because women felt bad. That's it. We're expected to feel all the time. I see this, by the way, even within my career. Actually, I'm working with a journalist, and I'm not kidding. She's working on a profile piece. She has sent me back and forth emails, and she continually keeps asking me if I can be nicer to trans people. She's talking to me like I'm a toddler, like I'm middle school. Don't you think you could be nicer? Don't you think that your words can be harsh? We're talking about trans people. She's referring to harsh niceness. And finally, I said back to her email, I said, would you be asking these journalistic questions if you were talking to a man? Something tells me that if you were sitting across from Bill Maher, or you were sitting across from Trevor Noah, you wouldn't be like, could you be nicer? But you're comfortable doing that because I'm a woman, and the expectation is that women should be nice even when we're being erased from our own spaces, right? Riley Gaines should just be nice. Who cares if men are taking her place? Who cares if she's worked her entire life to swim, right? To be in first place? Who cares if now a man comes and completely annihilates all her records? She's a woman, and she's therefore required to be nice. It finally led me to the moment of recognizing what Ann Coulter was likely talking about. That women, we vote with emotionality. We allow horrible things to take place because we feel bad for people. You need some other examples of things in our society. Look around you. Transgenderism, yeah, that's us. That's on us, ladies, 100%. Go look at the number of celebrities who have supported this. You will find women that keep continually speaking out about how we need to do our part. Doesn't matter if they're taking our place. We just need to be nice because this is how this person feels. We have now allowed this to seep inside of the classrooms. Women are behind this craziness. What about abortion? Who cares? Tens and millions of babies have been killed. Women just like the way the phrase "my body, my choice" sounds. Who cares? If we are mass murdering infants in the womb, who cares? Because, well, they know what to do in politics. It's very simple to get women to feel something, to get women to be enraged, to get them to go down from Yale on buses and to protest Brett Kavanaugh. All you have to do is get them emotionally riled up. What about open borders? Remember the infamous picture of AOC crying? Oh, who cares? These people are breaking the law. But she's gone down to the border to cry. She can't. This is such an injustice. Why would we want Mexicans to follow the law of the land? Don't you feel bad for them? They want to be in this country so badly that they're willing to break the law. Don't worry about it. Don't worry if crime is rising in America. Reach into your heart like a woman should. Suspend rationality like a woman should. Don't think about the economics like a man would. Think about how they feel, how illegal immigrants feel. That's your job as a woman, to continually feel. And that's why we're soft on crime, right? We're supposed to feel bad for criminals. I think about El Salvador. I think about those images of the men that are in the prison, all of these people clearly in gangs, tatted from head to toe similarly. And I think, yeah, that's probably a man who came up with that policy. Because when women saw the pictures and the videos of those men in prison, they felt something. It didn't matter if those men were killing women, as they were, if those men were killing random women, because that was what they had to do to get into their gangs like they were. What really mattered was we felt badly that they were all on top of each other in the prison. And how can this possibly be happening in El Salvador? We feel bad for criminals. We need to make sure they're comfortable in the prison systems. In fact, why don't we just release all of the criminals? Wouldn't that be a great idea? Who do you think would vote for that? A woman. So let's be honest with ourselves about every societal ill that we are facing today, every major societal ill, and we ask ourselves, how did we get here? The reason is because women feel bad. We're in places and in spaces in which men do not, in which men feel rationally. It's not to say that all men think rationally and that all men are not as emotionally expansive. But right now we have the majority of people that are voting, turns out, are women.
And not only that, but our society has lost its order. And Jordan Peterson talks about this concept a lot, the yin and the yang, so to speak, of order and chaos. And chaos is often represented in mythology by a woman. And that has gotten him a lot of heat because why? Because women feel bad about that. But the truth is, the world has been feminized now. So this is why our leaders are like children. This is why they cater to emotions, and those emotions are being felt by people who can actually move the system, which are women. Like she just said, we hold a majority of the vote. So it's pretty toxic. And we're going to talk about toxic empathy. I'm going to play a clip from Allie Beth Stuckey's podcast. But we'll get into that as well. Let's keep going.
And the majority of those votes are being influenced by emotion, in my view. I don't think that the average person thinks like me. I think there's a reason that there are a lot of women out there that hate me. Candace, why don't you accept fat acceptance? Oh, I don't know, because it's a death cult. You're encouraging clinical obesity. Only women could be so stupid as to allow the cover of our magazines to feature clinical obesity and trying to convince us that it's health. This doesn't happen in male spaces. Men don't lie to each other on the internet. Men don't look at pictures of clinically obese men and go, you look amazing. You're so brave. You're so stunning. Not even gay men. They're the most vain of all. They're not going to look at photos of clinically obese men on Instagram going, I'm proud of myself, body positivity, and go, brave. You know what they're going to say instead? They're going to say, you're fat, bro. You need to lose weight, man. Man, you got fat as hell, man. What happened to you, man? You're fat, man. and they encourage each other to be better. That's the truth. Women, we lie repeatedly to each other on the internet. We're comfortable in our lives. Not only do we lie to each other, we lie to ourselves. Beauty of it all. We are lying to ourselves, lying to one another, and putting forth policies, supporting policies that can not help society. In fact, it can only hinder society. That's the truth. And as I said, many women don't like me for it. The women that do like me, well, they don't like to speak out themselves because they feel uncomfortable, because they don't want people to accuse them of being a transphobe or a bigot or not.
I am one of the women who tend to like Candace Owens. I don't agree with everything she says, but I do like her. I love her boldness. And she is absolutely right about those of us who agree still don't want to speak out because it feels bad when people call us these names. Guess what? Call me the name. I don't care. You know why I don't care? Because I'm a mother. I'm a mother. And I'm a mother of future men. So, and I'm going to talk about this later, but I feel an obligation as a mother to keep my emotions in check and respect my husband so that my boys growing up can see a healthy dynamic instead of the feminine going above the masculine, because that is not God's design. But anyway, we'll get into that later.
Not accepting fat people, right? So they quietly support me because they're fearful that they'll be rejected, because as a woman, they're supposed to support lies. There were two really great responses to my question regarding women and the right to vote. The first came from Summer Lane on Twitter. She wrote, objectively, whether the 19th Amendment had anything to do with it or not, society has not improved. I don't think women voting is the issue. It was the rise of dogmatic, godless feminism surrounding women's suffrage that muddied what could have been great for girls. To clarify, I support the right of women to vote. Women need a voice too, but sadly, the ideologies surrounding female voting behavior is often rooted in emotional subjectivism. Hence why so many women vote left. They vote emotionally. That is so well said. The topic of godless feminism, something that I often bring up on this show, is what is behind this, because it is radical. It is hatred. It is hate-filled.
Absolutely. That is so true. That is kind of the root of it. And, well, I wouldn't say it's the root of it. It is a symptom of what happens when we allow disorder and chaos and emotions to reign over order, goodness, righteousness, and truth. Feminism, as we understand it now, hates men. Feminism hates marriage. Feminism hates children. And it destroys the role of motherhood. There's a quote by C.S. Lewis that just, gosh, every time I hear it, my heart just, I feel something. I feel something. But the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. It used to be that the role of a mother was a powerful and respected role. And now, because of godless feminism, being a stay-at-home mom, it's like not good enough. Or it's detrimental to society because you just, like, what are you showing your daughters? Barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen? As if that's a bad thing. Just, we live in a very warped society, and a huge part of it is feminism. It's all Satan at work here in the lives of people. But anyway, let's continue.
It's all about destruction. And then there was Andrew Tate, who wrote this in response. He wrote, every superpower can be reverse engineered. The masculine propensity to protect and be violent in the name of righteousness. This is an important mechanism, but can be commandeered for evil. Females' superpower is empathy, hijacked via the mainstream media, clown world agenda implemented. I think that is so powerful. And it...
Men, when they have order, when they have courage, when they follow Christ and understand their place, will be violent in order to be righteous, godly righteousness. They don't fear the woman and the feminization of it's like women. I mean, just look at the fact that women have, or our society has made God a she. Have you heard that? Remember that song by Ariana Grande? God is a she, or whatever it's called. God is a woman. We do that. Look at Mike Todd's church the other day, the Easter blasphemy. I didn't even point this out in my video, but the Jesus that was hanging on the cross was a female. Because we have so warped our perception of God, everything else has fallen away. And now we have men who are cowards, who cave to women's feelings at the expense of good, godly men, good, godly righteousness. There's no reason why Dylan Mulvaney should have ever been a thing. Not so much that women didn't stand up for the brands, when they were being taken over by this man, or Riley Gaines speaking out against, the swimming situation. You know what I mean? Words. I can't speak them right now, but it's that godly men, righteous, courageous men have lost the power to stand up for what's good and right and true. And as a result, our toxic empathy has completely taken over.
It really emotes what I feel, which is that empathy is a female superpower. I'm not saying don't be empathetic. I'm not saying don't have feelings, right? I love the fact that when I leave work, I get to have all the feelings when it comes to my children, right? I know when my son's manipulating me, I don't care, right? When he's sick, when he's putting on, when he's saying, mama, I know that those feminine aspects are great. And I encourage femininity. But when it is hijacked, when people realize that women have a propensity for that, and they get women to instead be irrational on topics that really matter, like transgenderism, like clinical obesity, encouraging things that are ultimately killing people, it becomes dangerous. I want you to think about that. Think about that truly and deeply, especially if you are a female.
Amen, Candace. I am thinking deeply about this. And it's because I fear the Lord, but I'm also kind of nervous about the direction that we're headed in. Like I mentioned earlier, I have sons. They are my life. And the world that they're growing up in is chaos. That feminine chaos, that mythological feminine chaos that is completely taken over. So as a woman, I look at feminism with disgust. Disgust. It has completely flipped our world upside down. We are totally okay as women, are totally okay with murdering our own children in the womb and speaking out about it. We're told to feel. Well, we're told we're not empathetic enough. That it's such a difficult choice. It's just such a difficult choice, Some women feel like it's not the right decision for them. So just rip your baby limb for limb and crush its skull and suck it out with a vacuum because it just doesn't feel like the right time to have a baby right now. Do you see the problem? Do you see the problem? Let us continue. And I'm not exaggerating, by the way. That is what happens in an abortion. It is brutal. And where are the men? They lost the power to say anything. Men are not allowed to speak up on this topic, according to society, modern America in 2023. They're shut down for saying these things. But guess what, men? Do it anyway. Fight. These are your children being killed. All right, so I have a clip from one of my absolute favorite podcasts. I've been watching this podcast for, I don't know, a year or 2 years, something like that. I don't know. This episode is a year old, and I still, as soon as I heard Candace Owens pose the question, I immediately thought of this episode. The whole episode is about this subject, toxic empathy, and I really, really encourage you to watch the whole thing. I'm just going to play a clip just to kind of introduce you to the idea.
Some of you by saying there are problems with empathy, because empathy and inclusion are the values that have sucked so many people, especially young people, especially women, and especially Christian women, into accepting ideas and policies that are actually very harmful. And they are harming the very people that these groups say that they want to defend, the most vulnerable, particularly women and children. And I'll talk about how that is. But not just women and children, also the people that we tend to see as marginalized and discriminated most against in American society. I remember a few years ago, I saw a video of a pastor talking about the dangers of empathy, even talking about the sin of empathy. And then I saw an influencer, I don't know if that's the correct term, I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but someone who has influence, who is a Christian, talking about how deleterious empathy can be. And honestly, for a while, I just didn't buy it. I just kind of felt like people who were saying this were trying to be edgy. And honestly, it kind of offended me. I thought, of all the things in the world, of all the terrible things that a person could be, of all the problems that we have in the universe, we're going to spend our time trashing empathy? Like, doesn't empathy just mean putting yourself in someone else's shoes, trying to understand how someone feels, to comprehend their position so you can listen to them, learn from them, and then potentially, if necessary, advocate on their behalf? Like, what could be wrong with that? Isn't empathy what helps us be less judgmental and kinder to people? And then inclusion, how could that be bad? Oh, what's wrong with trying to bring more people into the fold, making sure more people feel seen and heard? Shouldn't we, especially as Christians, be creating a more inclusive and empathetic society? Like, isn't that what Jesus would want? Isn't that loving people, loving your neighbor as yourself? The answer is, though, I've realized over time and after some thought and some reading and some investigation, that the answer is actually no. The answer is no. Not only should we not be prioritizing empathy and inclusion in our own lives, prioritizing, I mean every word. So make sure that you're listening to what I'm saying. I'm not saying, as I will talk about, that we shouldn't care about these things at all, but we should not be prioritizing empathy and inclusion in our lives. We also shouldn't be pursuing these as top societal values.
She's going to explain exactly what the definition of empathy is so that we have a firm understanding. But when she talks about prioritizing this value as one of the top values in society, not righteousness, not godly morality, because again, America has left its Judeo-Christian values. We are a secular, I call it secularism. We worship secularism. We practically worship the God of self at this point. We have left the God of the Bible completely out of the conversation. And so we're not rooted in what to feel, what that righteous indignation is. We don't feel that anymore. We don't know where to direct our feminine nature, of our feminine proclivity to feel and to feel deeply. It's not rooted in truth anymore. It's not rooted in righteousness anymore. And because we have so much power as females right now, we're raising our men to think like this. We are raising more and more toxic women. Every generation, women and girls become more toxic. And just really scar and traumatize men. And so, of course, they're not going to stand up for what's good and right and true.
It comes from the Greek empathia, which means in a state of passion or emotion. And I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of the German word of empathy, which came around in about the beginning of the 20th, end of the 19th century, which is Einfühlung. I think that's how you pronounce it, which literally means in feeling. It was built on that Greek word. And this is interesting. If you look at the etymology of this word, it meant a term from a theory of art appreciation that maintains appreciation depends on the viewer's ability to project his or her personality onto the object. So someone putting themselves into or onto another object to determine their feelings about it. So kind of like becoming that thing so they can appreciate and understand it. So let's stop right there when we're talking about empathy. The etymology, so the study of this word, the study of the meaning of this word, indicates that empathy is primarily about feelings. It is primarily about your state of emotions, the state of your mind. It's about your mentality. So when someone says that they're an empath, which is a word that you've probably heard more frequently recently, they typically mean that they can feel someone's pain strongly. So they are constantly taking on the struggles of those around them and they feel them deeply. Typically, this is used in a very positive sense, that you want your counselor or your friend, your psychologist, your pastor to be an empath, to be a very empathetic person. This is different than sympathy, which is feeling for someone or feeling with someone, but not necessarily putting yourself into their position and taking on the full depth of their pain. But both sympathy and empathy can be harmful. Both can be destructive, but especially empathy. So how? Because feeling too much,
that ability to feel what they're feeling, is not inherently a bad thing. God designed us this way. It's a good thing. This is why we're the nurturers of our home. It's a bad thing that it has superseded rationality. It's a bad thing that it's taken over completely. There's great ways to channel that beautiful, beautiful nature of women. But is it good for politics? Is it good for the police department? Is it good for being a soldier? And by the way, I have personal experience with this. There are roles for women in the military. They should not be combat roles. Feminism is trying to kill people by doing this. There is a place for that beautiful feminine empathy. I just want to make that clear. I'm not against empathy. I'm against toxic empathy left unchecked, which is exactly what we're suffering right now.
for someone, can blind us to reality, a reality that is bigger than someone's experience and pain. It can make us forego principles that are higher than this person's experience and pain. It can cause us to ignore the truth, the objective truth, in favor of how a person feels. So when we allow someone's pain to become our own pain, we then become unable to separate feelings, which are subjective, from reality, which is objective.
We have lost our grounding in the word of God in this country, but we still maintain the freedom to vote. But we lost the grounding. So now that freedom to vote is just like blowing everything up. This is why, like I said, the murder of the unborn. This is why we have men who can't see their children, because our justice system has been feminized because we feel too much. This is why we have criminals being able to jump over the border, not even jump, let's just be real, they're walking right over, waltzing on in, because we feel for the poor people from different countries. It doesn't matter if they're gangsters, guys. It doesn't matter if they rape people and they're bad. And I'm not saying all of them are bad. And just, oh my God, the fact that I even have to caveat that just shows that toxic culture that we have, that we can't even talk about objective truth. Like she said, it's all about subjective feelings. How dare you say that, Jasmine? Don't say that. That's so rude. Aren't you Hispanic? Shouldn't you feel for these people? Guess what? I don't. I feel more for the people inside this country right now. We are the ones paying the price objectively because of our toxic empathy. All right, I'm going to switch gears really quickly. I'm going to play one last clip, and this is about fatherlessness. And the reason fatherlessness is such a problem right now is, again, because of the toxic femininity that has been allowed to take over. We have weak men, and we're headed for suffering because we have toxic women who are allowed to reign. So I'm just going to play a little bit of this clip by Patrick Bet David.
The U.S. has the highest rate of children living in a single-parent household of any nation in the world. About 80% of single-parent homes are led by single mothers, at a rate of 23% of children living with one parent and no other adult. The United States stands over 3 times the world average of 7% of children raised by one parent. For reference, the number stands at 3% in China, 4% in India. This is not an area we want to be competing with other countries, by the way. If there is a statistic to not be competing in, this is one of the statistics. China's at 3, India's at 4, the world's at 7. We're at 23% in America, zero bragging rights. This is the stat everybody wants to hide. And this is the stats where the side effects of this, we ain't going to see for 2 decades. Or 3 decades or longer.
Single parenthood has destroyed this country. Look, I feel for widows, okay? My heart, this is where that feminine nature, my heart is broken for widows, right? I feel for people who have made poor choices as young fallen women and have given themselves over to men who are cowards, who don't have a godly standing in life. They're not rooted, so they let their passions and their lust drive them. And you as the young, immature female, look, I feel for that. I feel for that, but to a degree. Because now in 2023, we can see the fruits of that. The years and generations of women choosing horrible men who will not be there for you when you have a child, will encourage you to murder your child, which stains your soul. And if you don't seek Christ to cleanse you of that sin, I mean, gosh, how do you cope? How do you cope? Single parenthood is the reason. Okay, I'm going to say something very bold here. And this is going to probably upset some people. But we just saw, you know what? I'm gonna have to play the clip. Guys, I'm gonna have to play the clip. Listen, you need to see this. You need to see this. This is the result of toxic empathy, single parenthood, women leaving godly callings, forgetting completely about the Bible, and generations of darkness resulting in the breakdown of the family. This is the result that we are seeing in 2023.
Some breaking news off the top. Hundreds of teens flooding into downtown Chicago tonight, smashing car windows, trying to get into Millennium Park, prompting a major police response. Within the past few minutes, shots were fired near the corner of Madison and Michigan. Now, we had a news crew on the scene, but they had to move because of safety concerns. I was there a little bit earlier, about an hour and a half ago, and saw police escorting tourists and visitors to their cars in the Millennium Park parking garage. The crowd was trying to get into Millennium Park, but there are checkpoints that are not allowing anyone under the age of 21 who's not with an adult to get in. So they're massing across the street on the other side of Michigan Avenue. I spoke to a woman whose car was smashed by people jumping on the windshield. She says the crowd began beating her husband as he sat in the driver's seat. He's now been sent to Northwestern Memorial Hospital. I also talked to a woman, a Chicago native, who was appalled by what she saw.
What I see out here is completely ludicrous, to be honest with you. I'm appalled at what I see. I'm from Chicago, and I understand kids having a good time, but it's simply bad parenting. We have to do better as parents. Our kids should not be out here. Where are their parents at? That's my question.
Where are their parents at? And more importantly, where are their fathers? Where are their fathers? Where are their mothers? I'm not saying a single mom can't make the best of a situation and do what you can, but when, especially men, especially boys, they need their dads. They need someone to tame their wildness, their proclivity for the masculine to become dangerous, right? To become dangerous. When we let the feminine take over and we see a breakdown of the family and we have 23% of single parenthood, we are leading the world in single parenthood. This is the chaos. This is the chaos that Jordan Peterson talks about when he talks about feminine chaos. Where are their parents? Where are their fathers? And especially in the Black community. I know I'm not Black. I know they're going to tell me, you can't speak on this. Your skin is too light. Guess what? I don't give a damn. Excuse my French. I don't care. Because that feminine nature of mine feels really heartbroken to see this in this beautiful country we call America. People being victimized by teenagers who do not have fathers, the majority of whom are Black. If you go back in history, right? If you go back to, let's say, the 50s, and you see the way that Black families and Black culture presented themselves, you don't see this. Fathers were present. Mothers were valued. Marriage was valued. The family was valued. And more importantly, God was valued. And because we have taken God out of the picture, when you take God out of the picture, everything else falls apart. And here we are in 2023. Breakdown of the family, breakdown of marriage, women raising children that they cannot handle on their own, or not even caring. Because they're
takes a while to see the side effects.
I don't know.
Let me continue.
What these
Even for
parents are
children
doing
with
right
a father
here,
present in the home, the average school-age boy only spends about 30 minutes per week with one-on-one conversations with his father. For comparison, the same boy, on average, will spend about 44 hours a week watching television, playing video games, and surfing the internet.
The lack of father involvement, men are responsible for this as well. Men have allowed their lust to take over. They have lost power in society. They have lost power in their households. They're at fault for this. But you can't tell me that the way women act, baby mamas, do they make it easy? Do the vast majority, and look, if you're one of those people, right, that your baby daddy doesn't even try and blah, 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 and you're like, I give him the opportunities to see his kid. He just chooses not to. I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about you at all, okay? Good job for making the best of a situation, recognizing that your child needs a father, and I'm sorry that that man that you opened your body to ended up being a POS. Okay, I'm sorry about that. However, okay, there's a lot of women where no, they don't allow you as the father to interact with your children. And if they do, they make it absolute hell. And they have the court to back them up. So don't even talk to me about, oh, it's always the baby daddy fault, okay? It's always the baby daddy's fault. They don't even try. They're deadbeats. What about you? You're a deadbeat mom. You're a toxic mom. You don't even let them see their kid. It should not be drama. It should just be like, you know what? You as the father have just as much rights as me as the mother. And we love our child. So all of the hate that I feel for you is going to, and hear me out. Feel all of the hate that I feel for you, because I'm a woman and I feel deeply. So if I feel hate for you, I feel it really deeply. But I'm going to put that aside because God has called me to be a mother and to be the best mother I can be for my children. And I know that my child needs the father. It's one thing if the father doesn't want to try. And it's a whole nother thing if they try and you make every step of the process a living nightmare. Humans can only take that for so long. And then you destroy them in court. Gosh, it's sickening. I feel passionately about this. And me and my husband go back and forth about, you know, how to approach these conversations with our sons when they start getting older and want to date and want to get married. How do we tell them about the women? How do we tell them that women have so much power that it can destroy your life? Beware of being married to some of these women. But I want to talk about what the biblical woman should be, because yes, we can point out, well, don't be like this, don't be like this, don't be like this. Well, what should we be like? What is the calling of women? How can we as Christian moms in 2023 do better? And one of the more famous examples is Proverbs 31. Listen, my son, listen, son of my womb. Listen, my son, the answer to my prayers. Do not spend your strength on women, your vigor on those who ruin kings. Do you hear that? Do you hear that? Do not spend your strength on women. Do not spend your vigor on those who ruin kings. Ruin kings. That's how powerful and how toxic and destructive a woman can be if she is not grounded in righteousness. Then the mother goes on to talk about alcohol. I'll go ahead and read all of it. It's not for kings, Lemuel. It's not for kings to drink wine, not for rulers to crave beer, lest they drink and forget what has been decreed and deprive all the oppressed of their rights. Let beer be for those who are perishing, wine for those who are in anguish. Let them drink and forget their poverty and remember their misery no more. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy. That line right there is a conviction for men. Men, I know there's men who stumble upon my videos. If you are a man, this Proverbs 31 is talking to you as well. Do not give in to your passions. You want beer, you want wine, you're in pain, so you just drink the night away. You're headed for destruction. Verse 8, speak up for those who cannot speak up for themselves. In 2023, men, wake up, speak up for your children, including the ones that your toxic women are trying to murder in the womb. Speak up. It's devastating. We need you. We need you. Then we have the best part of this verse, in my opinion, which is the wife of noble character. I love that the Bible not only says what to watch out for, but gives you an example of what to strive for. A wife of noble character. Who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She's like the merchant ships, bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it's still night. She provides food for her family and portions for her female servants. She considers a field and buys it out of her earnings. She plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her tasks. She sees that her trading is profitable and her lamp does not go out at night. In her hand, she holds the distaff and grabs the spindle with her fingers. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. When it snows, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. She makes coverings for her bed. She's clothed in fine linen and purple. Her husband is respected at the city gate, where he takes his seat among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them and supplies the merchants with sashes. She's clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and her faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise and call her blessed. Her husband also, he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive, and beauty is fleeting. But a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. That is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. So women, what is noble is to be a wife, is to be a mother, is to not be lazy, is to not spend your earnings on yourself, but instead for your household, because that is beauty. That is true beauty. Our society is obsessed with beauty. And this is why we see the Kardashians like getting injections and all of the things for beauty. That's not noble and it's not beautiful. That beauty is fake and it's fleeting. This beauty is everlasting. The woman who, like C.S. Lewis said, I quoted him earlier, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. So I'm finally giving my answer. Should women be able to vote in 2023, considering everything we've heard thus far? No. No. Or maybe only if you are a mother. Just kind of like it used to be that you had to have military service or be a property owner to vote. Like there was restrictions on who could vote. Maybe you have to at least be a mom and a wife. I don't know. I really feel that you need to have a stake, a serious stake in society. Because if you're like a childless woman, I'm not saying you're inherently bad, but what if your empathy is much worse for society and you don't feel it in the same way a parent would or a wife would, or, you know, I don't know. It's a hard question, but it feels weird, but I'm gonna say no. I don't think that women should be able to vote because voting is in the realm of policy. Policy affects people. And people matter a lot to God. And if we are allowing the feminism that is not rooted in biblical truth to take over and therefore victimize and oppress people, as we've already discussed in the rest of the episode, then maybe voting shouldn't be just a right. It should be a privilege. It should be a privilege to be able to vote. You should have a stake in the future. I don't know. Gosh, I'm gonna have to say no. Oh my God, I can't even believe I'm saying that. But if it gives way to righteous men moving our society in a better direction than the one we've been down ever since we've gotten the right to vote, and ever since we got God out of the picture, I'd rather have that. I'd rather have that. I want to be led by a good man and not by an empathetic woman. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Bold Reflections. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think. Am I completely wrong? Is Candace completely wrong? Is Allie completely wrong here? Let me know your thoughts. I want to know. I genuinely want to know what you think. And as always, God bless.